Last time we worked on the van, the entire wiring harness had been replaced by my new friend Adam, who's played a major role in all of this. If it's not clear by now, without Adam, I wouldn't be near as close to leaving as I am today.
What's it doing that for?
Not entirely sure.
However, this van did have a lot more issues than we initially thought, and after fixing and reassembling the wiring, it was time to move on to some other projects, starting with the transmission. Now I need to make this clear. I can drive a stick. My first vehicle was a 1986 Mazda B2000 pickup truck, and it was a manual. That being said, this van was a huge pain in the ass to learn. If I put it in reverse, for example, it remained stuck in reverse until I double clutched to remove it, which would inevitably kill the engine, so I'd have to turn it back on in the rush of traffic. Ugh.
Oh, come on. Okay. Jesus Christ.
Other issues with the transmission. I found third and fourth gear fine, but first and second gear were almost impossible, especially first. So, after talking with Adam about all this, we went to the drawing board in search of what might be causing it. Now, first things first, I want to make this clear. We didn't actually suspect the transmission itself of being faulty. When you get it into gear, it doesn't slip, it doesn't grind, and it doesn't fall out of gear. The issue was finding the gears, which made us suspect that the transmission linkage was the issue. See, there are a couple types of transmission linkages on these Vanagons. The straight, long metal rod, and the even longer curved rod that was used in later Vanagons. Luckily, my Vanagon is an 82, so it has the long straight rod with a couple bushings that link from the back of the van to the transmission all the way to the front of the van, and this is where we decided to check. The transmission box. So Adam and I get up under the van and remove this transmission box, which instantly led us to our major culprit. Let me draw this out for you. So this bar connects to the linkage system within this box. In this box, you have a bracket on both sides. One side is first gear, second gear, and reverse. The bracket on the other side is third and fourth. This transmission box was missing its first and second gear bracket, which explains why they were so hard to find and why reverse got stuck almost every time.
Isn't there supposed to be another bracket on that side?
Yeah, I think so.
With this missing link discovered, it was now time to remedy this issue. Now normally these brackets are made of metal, and it seems this whole box is comprised of some sort of steel. Adam, however, had another idea.
Yeah, I was sitting there thinking, okay, we'll have to get the piece, we'll have to order the piece, online, and wait for it to come. Adam's over here just like, no, just make this real quick.
He, no joke, took a cutting board, measured the size of the bracket needed, cut out a piece of this cutting board, which is comprised of linear low-density polyethylene, which is apparently important information, being as this stuff is very strong and degrades pretty slowly. After cutting the piece out, he screwed it into place and popped the transmission box back up under the van. We were almost ready for a test drive, except for one thing. See, these heater tubes down here are made of rubber, which isn't really a bad thing other than they can vibrate and shake against the metal body of the van, burst open, and ruin everything. So I'll be replacing these with stainless steel tubes eventually. But until then, Adam decided we needed to make a bracket to secure them down. This would make sure that they don't move as much and inevitably burst. First things first, he took a piece of PVC pipe and cut it into a small circle. Then he smoothed out the edges to make sure this bracket wouldn't end up causing issues. After that, he cut the bracket and using a heat gun, molded an opening for it so we could insert the tubes. Once that was done, he punched a hole right here into the bracket, let it cool and form, and then he screwed it into place. Now that those hoses were secure, we could get into transmission issue number 2, the clutch. The clutch was the last issue. Remember before when I said I had to double clutch sometimes to get it into gear? Well, as much as that was a transmission issue, one thing I forgot to mention was the clutch was also a bit of the culprit. You see, the clutch master cylinder would bottom out and stay there. The clutch itself wouldn't disengage. So there'd be points where I'd come to a stoplight or a sign and the clutch would still technically be engaged. So, for example, I'm in third gear. I hit the brakes to stop, put the van into neutral, and then the van dies when I let off the clutch because it's still technically in third gear instead of being in neutral like I was trying to do.
Shit. Sorry, baby.
All this really required was a new master cylinder, which I purchased and Adam so graciously installed, and then we bled the clutch. This part took more time than anything else, simply because we had to drain all the previous brake fluid until this black ooze drained. and the fluid went back to the color it was supposed to be. By the looks of the fluid that came out of this clutch, I'd say this has probably never been done for this poor van before. With all this taken care of, we're well on our way to having this van revitalized. The engine and the transmission are great, the wiring harness has been rebuilt, the transmission linkage was touched up a bit, and the clutch works like new. At this point, it was truly time to drive it, which is where Adam's video that I shouted out last week actually takes place. Once all the transmission work was done, I took Adam's wires and threw them into my van as a prank. He thought it was pretty funny and likened it to what you'd see in an anime. After all this, it was time to say goodbye to Adam for a bit and start my own projects. First order of business was the first car wash, which took forever and didn't really scrub out a lot of that oxidation. There's still a lot of work to do with this van. I have videos about rebuilding side panels, removing interior lining, installing the floor, soundproofing, but that'll all have to come later. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys are as excited about this project as I am. I can't wait to get out there on the road. Just a few more projects and I'll be ready to go. Someone asked me if I'm annoyed that how much work I gotta do to the van, if I wish I would have put my money instead to something that ran from the get-go. And all these trials and tribulations kind of remind me of religious text in a way. Not that I feel I'm some fabled biblical character or anything, but it's kind of fitting that here I am in the first stages, the Genesis if you will, and I've already got myself an Adam. Bye guys.
Would you ever go to Mars if you were given the opportunity?
Yes.
Yeah? Even if you were the first and you knew you'd just die?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I hope that one day the engineer will publish the paperwork that explicitly says this is how you warp space-time, and then I'll be the technician that builds that thing. And then accidentally warp myself to the surface of Mars.